I'm going to take a look at the first fight scene with Beaton, Balebat, Batfleck, and Batterson's Batmans. Yes, that's a lot. And yes, I know there have been 10 actors who've put on the Batsuit, but I didn't want to make a 2-hour video.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
One of the most enduring concepts of the Batman is that he's really good in a punch-up. Like, really good. The problem is then, how do you show the psychology of the Batman whilst he dominates every fight? How the Batman enters the fight is revealing of the approach each director took in directing the character. Tim Burton had Michael Keaton, still a fan favourite, and he took a noir theatrical approach to 1989's Batman.
No shit, it was all over the pavement.
This epic shot puts the audience in a position of knowledge against the thieves, getting us excited to see their comeuppance. We see the Batman, but we can't see any of his features. Instead, the iconic shape of the bat wings are revealed dramatically as he lowers into view. This flashy entrance is of course not for the criminals, but for the audience. However, it serves the purpose of telling us that the Batman is a fully formed character, confident and practiced. The choice of a wide shot is revealing also. We could have seen the Batman much closer, had Burton used a medium shot, but staying wide achieves 2 effects. It shrouds the Batman in mystery, as we can only clearly see the shape of his silhouette, and secondly, it shows us the focus of his attention. We know these criminals are blissfully ignorant of their predicament, and this is tantalizing for the audience as we await the Batman's approach. The hard lighting Tim Burton uses creates large pools of darkness, paying homage to the comics, but also creating a sense of Gotham City as a place of secrets and corruption.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Christopher Nolan's approach to 2005's Batman Begins was far more realistic, couching Batman as a stealthy assassin. Similarly to Tim Burton, we start by watching the criminals. This time, however, there are far more of them and they all have automatic weapons, raising the stakes considerably. Christopher Nolan, however, cannot use the legend of the Batman as the criminals talk, as he's only really just begun his Bat journey. Therefore, it's as much of a surprise for us as it is the criminals when one of the criminals is dragged into a container without seeing the Batman at all. Unlike Tim Burton, there is no build-up waiting for the Batman to strike. Instead, Nolan has spent half the movie building to this point, tantalizing us with the construction of his ethos, skills, and Batsuit. The lighting Nolan uses creates large pools of darkness with hard lighting just like Burton. However, the lighting is now motivated by the location compared to Tim Burton, who focused more on style over believability.
I'm Batman.
Moving on. Zack Snyder's approach is a love letter to the experience of the comics. In this version, Snyder takes a dramatically different approach to Batman. Batman doesn't approach the criminals, instead they approach him, surprising him and forcing him into a fight. The predator becomes the prey. Another stark difference here is how the scene plays out during the daytime, where Batman is easily visible and unable to use the advantage of his dark suit. Lighting here is more about the use of colour to denote the dream world, as Snyder's real world is far darker and shrouded in blues. This version of the Batman isn't trying to hide himself. Instead, Snyder's vision for Batman here really explores the Batman's greatest fears of becoming powerless. And what would be more disempowering than putting the Batman in daylight? Matt Reeves helms the most recent Batman movie and takes the most self-destructive approach that has ever been put to screen. Returning to the original trope, Reeves motivates Batman's appearance with more criminals. However, this time Batterson makes his approach heard on purpose. Matt Reeves is exploring a Batman who understands that building a mental projection of him appearing builds fear in the criminals, but it goes further than that. Reeves' lighting style here is designed to shroud the Batman in darkness, especially when he approaches his prey. And the Batman 2022 has the least contrast we've ever seen on a Batman movie. We don't see any of the bright and dark pools of light and shadow from Burton or daytime fighting like Snyder. Matt Reeves very much takes advantage of the latest camera technologies to present a Batman lost in his own darkness. However, having Batman make his approach on the criminals obvious and audible means he loses any advantage of surprise like Tim Burton or Nolan's Batman's utilised, hinting at a more sadistic approach to this particular Batman's fighting methods. Tim Burton's Batman uses singular strikes which are decisive and strong, presenting a version of Batman who's overwhelming force in hand-to-hand combat. This conveys Batman's psychology effectively, as confident and assured in his actions at the time we meet him. This aligns well with the fact that we meet the Batman as he is largely already known, and he himself has accepted his role as fighting crime as the Batman. This works well during this era of cinema, as the audience expects to see confident action heroes like John McClane, Rambo, or the Terminator, who are almost always overpowered and massively egotistical.
Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
Bale was a departure from the standard fisticuffs that we'd seen in most of the Batman movies and TV shows up to this point. His fighting style utilises his environment, such as the shadows and sound, and his martial arts are quick and effective. Much of the fighting style is also about position against his opponents, weaponizing the shadows to outmaneuver them.
Where are you?
Here. So Nolan decided to take a more believable route to his Batman, to not have him approach a group of machine gun wielding criminals from the front, and instead takes a more practical approach. So in this first fight sequence, the Batman is largely hidden, mimicking how Tim Burton approached the Batman's first fight, where we watch from the criminal's perspective. How Nolan's Batman wrenches the mob boss from the car is also completely unnecessary, and it's a complete flourish compared to the previous efficient attacks. Batman has any multitude of tools he could have used to incapacitate the mob boss from a safe distance. However, he chooses instead to overpower the mob boss by pulling him through the roof of his car. This moment reveals a Batman who is trying to make a splash, so the criminal underworld will fear him. But the pent-up anger and frustration shows as he viciously spits his iconic line.
I'm Batman.
The delivery of his iconic line, alongside Nolan's approach to his fighting methods, reveals a Batman who has so much pent-up anger seeing Gotham be destroyed.
I swear to God. Swear to me!
So we're on to Snyder's Batman now, and he described Batfleck as a brawler. He's seen too much and he no longer holds his punches. However, a first for the modern Batman movies, we see him during the daylight during the first fight. This is an essential creative choice to highlight Batman's fears. This scene could have easily happened at night, however, as this scene is actually Batman's dream, we see how the fear has manifested. Batman finds himself in a fight where he is caught off guard. This again is very much unlike Batman, who comes prepared for almost anything. But he is so powerless, he immediately uses lethal weapons to defend himself. Snyder's Batman is the first Batman we meet in a state of fear. He isn't overconfident or naive like the previous Batmans that we've seen. Batman's fighting style and situation for the fight reveal how powerless he feels in the face of overwhelming force. Key to Snyder's Batman was in removing Batman's greatest strengths and turning the fear he normally dishes out on the criminal element back upon himself. Reeves' Batman feels like a mixture of all the previous three Batmans, showing some expert martial arts, but with the heavy, overwhelming force to take his opponents down in just a couple of hits. However, this time his approach to the fight means he allows himself to be surrounded, giving the criminals a chance to gain power over him. This is in stark contrast to the normal quick dispatch Batman makes of his previous opponents. which to me means that Reeves is allowing the Batman to get hit, even shot. Reeves doesn't have the Batman use tactics like Nolan to overcome his opponents. Instead, he wants to fight hand to hand, mano a mano. But this feels more like unbridled rage than any previous Batman ever felt. What makes this very effective is that Batman doesn't feel invulnerable here. He takes some punishment. However, it also shows another aspect of the Batman's psychology. He's become self-destructive. He also states in a previous scene how he chooses his targets specifically. This gives us an interesting insight as it shows how much crime is so out of control in Gotham. He must choose where he attacks. Therefore, he's chosen to battle the largest group of criminals that we are introduced to from the beginning of the film. Again, this points us towards a very self-destructive Batman, who's become more about punishing the criminals than saving the victims.
I'm vengeance.
This is one of the most interesting directorial choices, as every Batman prior to this has always used the iconic line,
I'm Batman.
But to change this speaks to Reeves' take on the Batman on a fundamentally psychological level. Matt Reeves wants us to meet a Batman who has a twisted vision of how to save Gotham, so much so he's become an instrument of vengeance rather than a symbol of hope. It's not what you punch, it's how you punch that matters.